Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice Podcast, episode 278. I'm your host, Kim Newlove. I am fresh back from vacation and I'm going to open up with a story. I was on an airplane with my son Derek last weekend, May 12th, 2024. Derek got a tummy bug in Germany and we did not realize it until we were already in the air. His symptoms were nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, chills, shortness of breath, and body aches. Sorry if I am triggering you. This was big fun on an international flight. He had never been this sick on an airplane before, and he had no idea what hit him. Whatever this was, it came on very suddenly. We had no clue before takeoff. 1 minute, he was eating a sandwich while we were waiting in line to board the plane. 1 hour later, we're up in the air, and he's making his first trip to the bathroom. The crew started asking questions when Derek asked to lie down across some empty seats and cover up with not just one, but 3 blankets. We had a brief discussion, the crew and Derek and I, and the crew, they actually took a cell phone and called a medical center for support. I didn't know that you could actually use a cell phone on a plane. I know they tell you to shut off your cell phone, but I've never actually seen crew use a cell phone on a plane. But that they did, and as we were flying over the Atlantic Ocean, the crew got some information and they were able to help my son. Let me just say to our Delta flight crew, thank you. You guys rock. I really appreciate you. The crew made Derek feel comfortable and even provided oxygen, acetaminophen, and 4 milligrams of Ondansetron ODT. Fast forward 48 hours, and Derek was back in the US and completely recovered. It was I think, an 8.5 hour flight, if I remember right. And he was sick for the whole thing. But again, he took like 48 hours to recover, and he's doing great. In fact, Derek is a baseball umpire as a summer job. He's 19 years old, and he went to work Tuesday night. I love a story with a happy ending. He went from feeling like crap on a plane to umpiring a baseball game 2 days later. In honor of Derek's illness on the plane and the Ondansetron ODT he received, we're talking about Ondansetron and the brand name Zofran today. This is the 32nd episode in my drug name pronunciation series. If you are new to this series, welcome. You can find the show notes for this episode on thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click on the podcast tab and find episode 278. What's in the show notes? You'll find the written pronunciations and other resources. All right, let's get started with Ondansetron first. Ondansetron has 4 syllables. On, as in the bottle is on the shelf. Dan, which is short for Daniel. Se, like sister. And Tron, as in Megatron, a villain from the Transformers series of movies. Those are great movies and definitely part of American pop culture. Put those syllables together and you get Ondansetron. Emphasize Dan. See if you can hear that emphasis when I say it again. Ondansetron. Ondansetron. My source for the pronunciation of Ondansetron is the USP Dictionary Online. That is a subscription-based resource, and you can find a link to it in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. That does it for Ondansetron. Let's move on to Zofran next. Zofran has 2 syllables. Zo, which rhymes with Joe, and Fran, which is short for Francis. Put both syllables together and you get Zofran. Emphasize Zo. See if you can hear the emphasis when I say it again. Zofran. Where did I get the pronunciation of Zofran? This one's from clinical experience, from my background as an Ohio licensed pharmacist. I have been an Ohio licensed pharmacist since 2001. I went to the University of Toledo College of Pharmacy, graduated with my BS Pharm in 2001. Zofran has been part of my vocabulary since I was an intern in pharmacy school in the late 90s. I typically like to link to trustworthy resources in my show notes. I would love to give you a medication guide link in my show notes, preferably a medication guide from the FDA's website. Those are my favorite. Super reputable. But I came up empty on this one, so you'll just have to trust me on Zofran. That does it for Zofran. Let's review. We talked about the pronunciations of Ondansetron and Zofran. I divided both drug names into syllables, told you which syllables to emphasize, and then I shared my sources. The written pronunciations are in the show notes, and that does it for this episode. Thank you for joining me to learn how to say Ondansetron and Zofran. To find the show notes for this episode, go to thepharmacistvoice.com, click on the podcast tab, and then search for episode 278. In the show notes, you'll find the written pronunciations for both drug names, links to the other 31 episodes in my drug name pronunciation series, my social media links, and more. If you know someone who needs to learn how to say Ondansetron or Zofran, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks for listening today. I'll talk to you next Friday. Next Friday is my spring 2024 update. I'll be talking about my trip to Europe and more. I'll talk to you then.